Hey folks, welcome to the August 29th SIG-Windows community meeting. This meeting is recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so please adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct, which basically translates to be nice to everyone. All right, let's kick things off here. Hope everyone can see the agenda. So August 29th. Any announcements, folks? I don't have any on my radar. I don't know if you have any, Mark.
No, I don't have any.
Okay, good. And this is the time we give time for any new contributors to introduce themselves and so that we can extend a warm welcome to them. So let me check if there are any new folks here. I do see a couple of folks. I'll give a couple of minutes if anybody wants to say hello. If not, we can move on. All right, so let's kick things off. The first item on the agenda is I'm not opening the Slack link at the moment since it's going to be hard for me to get to that. But there were a couple of CVEs, or I think to be exact, 3 CVEs, which affected just Windows workloads. Basically, what happened is if you have a mount point in your pod spec, and in that mount point, you could actually put in a PowerShell command, and that would end up getting executed on the host, from what I understand. In fact, it's a pretty easily reproducible CVE. And the way to fix that was to add more input sanitization in these places. The same thing happened if you're using CSI proxy. And I think the 2 CVEs affect all versions over 119, about 119. And I think it's a lesser, it's I think 123 for the CSI proxy one, but don't quote me on that. Take a look at the thread and all the details are in there. So we highly recommend everybody to move to the latest version of whichever Kubernetes minor version that you're running. Update to the latest patch version, the latest Z string. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the 124 was in the extended servicing, and this prompted that to be patched to. So 124 and greater new releases have been, or new patch releases have been cut for all of those, and please upgrade. Yeah, and if there's any questions, feel free to reach out in Slack, or there's a lot of information in the disclosure there.
Yeah, and this is a time where if you're in one of the older versions that are not supported, this is a very good reason for you folks to upgrade to the next major version. This is a pretty bad vulnerability, and you shouldn't be running your cluster with this with the version that has this vulnerability.
Yeah, and or go ahead.
Yeah, no, nothing else. I was about to say your hand is still up, Mark, so please go ahead.
Oh, I just lowered it too. But I was going to say, we were talking about this a little bit before the recording, but for anybody who's interested and for anybody who uses PowerShell in production, this is probably particularly relevant. But the issue was that there were some PowerShell variables that were getting kind of string formatted into a command line call, and then we would shell out to PowerShell on the Windows nodes. And though we weren't doing the input sanitization, so people could put sub-expressions in PowerShell, which is where you do a $sign and then wrap it in parentheses. And that allows you to execute arbitrary PowerShell code at, in this case, whatever permission the kubelet's running, which we require to be elevated. So it's a pretty easy thing to catch in, or to miss in code reviews. There's a couple of options to prevent PowerShell from ever expand or running that sub-expression. And the 2 simplest ones are to put it in single quotes if you're able to, if you don't need to worry about like path manipulation or anything. And the other way is to set that as set what you want as an environment variable, and then reference the environment variable in the PowerShell command call. And that will prevent that sub-expression from being evaluated. It will just pass it in as a string literal. So that's a nice tip for anybody who's running PowerShell anywhere near production. Try to check your PowerShell to make sure you're not allowing those sub-expression commands to be executed. But I think the other thing is, and we don't have to have this discussion now, but I think there is going to be a discussion in the community about how do we either prevent this from happening in the future via some sort of linters or something, or potentially just banning PowerShell from the Kubernetes code base. So I think James also kind of has a lot of background here too. I don't know if you have any comments, but if not, it's okay.
Don't have a ton that you didn't already say, but yeah, I would say I think there is plans to have a retro on this in the community, and so we'll make sure that we mention that in Slack once we have date and time, so that anybody interested can join.
That's all I'm trying to just. I want to just raise awareness of this class of vulnerabilities for everybody to, since it's pretty easy to do a lot of things in PowerShell. I imagine this isn't the only place that this could happen in anybody who's on this call's workloads.
Yeah, I like James's suggestion of adding this to Slack so that it's out there. But yeah, this is, I'm glad we caught this finally. All right, so we can move on to the next topic. So, Mark, what has happened is my computer is completely frozen. I might need to restart. Could you start taking over while I restart?
I don't think I'm host. Can you make me host so I can?
I cannot do anything. It's completely frozen. I don't even know how my video is working and how my audio is working, but everything is frozen at the moment for me.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Sorry about this, folks. But in the meanwhile...
Oh, wait, it says I'm a new host. Or it says I'm... Okay, never mind. Let me see if I can... Okay, I can share and then...
Okay, well, once you're ready, I'm going to drop. Sorry about this, folks. Technical difficulties.
Yeah. Yes. All right, can folks see this? Okay, so next on the agenda was this runtime handler for image polls. Do we know who added this?
I added.
Okay, Cortana. Oh yeah, go ahead. If you want to discuss anything.
So that PR I just opened, so basically it supports runtime class per image pool. And this is, I think primarily the motivation was to support the Hyper-V scenarios on the Windows platform matcher, but I think it can be used across different runtimes. And the bulk of the changes lie in containerd, so I wanted more feedback from the community, and I opened that PR as a draft. I know Mark and Derek have taken a look and they left some comments in there, but if anyone else on this call would like to take a look at that PR and then give us feedback on that, that would be great. And that also has a link to HackMD that just has like a draft cap of the changes and the motivation, etc. And I think primarily one of Derek's main comments there was to not change the image API calls in containerd, and to just add labels that's going to like indicate the runtime handler that'll be used for the image and use that to pass to the CRI servers. So I'm making those changes and I'll publish like new changes to this PR today.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely take a look. I was kind of busy with some other stuff last week, but this is good. Yeah, it looks like what's Mike's? Did he have any overall feedback, or is it just specifics?
I think Mike was more specifics, but he said Derek like knows that code path better. So I think Derek also took a look at it, and he just said like we'd like to add labels and not change the image API. function.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if he's giving some like feedback like that, I think that's great. Because it means like that they're probably like there's ideas that they're willing to, take. We just need to make sure it aligns with their goals too and everything.
And I also had a call with Mike Brown on Friday, and he mentioned they created a work group on the SIG nodes to just get this through. And my PR happened to go out on Thursday, so he added me to that work group, and he said we could discuss more there.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at this. I guess for this audience, is there anything people should be concerned about, or is this purely additive
I think
to enable new functionality?
I think it's additive, and my goal is to like not affect any current functionality if runtime class is not specified during image pool. The goal is to just keep it the same. Of course, there's like a lot of testing that needs to be done. With this PR, I've just managed to do the basic testing and run some test suites locally, but it would obviously have to run through a lot more test suites, and I'd have to make sure that existing functionality is not broken in any way.
One other comment that I just had, I don't know if you thought about this, but since this is going into container D, is there any talk about if this if they'd be willing to put this back into container D 1.6 or 1.7? Because that would be if it's really just added a functionality. I think after this goes into master, it would be awesome if we can try and get it into 1.7.
Yeah, I asked Mike about it on Friday, and at that point, I think Derek had not taken a look, so he was concerned that we are changing the image API on Container D. So he said there might be concerns that folks have if you wanted to backport it, but now my changes look a lot like simpler with without any image API changes after like implementing what Derek suggested. I think it should be okay for us to backport, and there might not be too many concerns for backporting to 1.7.
Yeah, I think, Mark, 1.7 is doable, and we can push for that because 1.7 has a bunch of experimental features in it already, from what I understand. 1.6, I don't think, because they claim that's the LTS release of Container D. I'm not sure if they are going to be open to this going into 1.6. But we need 1.7 for Windows anyways, right? As in, not need, but helpful if we have 1.7 for host process and stuff like that to work well.
Yeah, 1.7 has most of the changes for at least the experimental work for the Hyper-V isolated containers too, which is what this is helping to enable too. So I don't know if it would make sense to go back to 1.6. But I did hear, I think from Mike Brown at one point saying that because 1.6 was the LTS, they were going to be a bit more generous about what kinds of work they were willing to accept, and assuming that it wasn't, breaking or anything.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Usually, I sometimes think about LTS as we'll be more conservative about backporting into LTSs.
Yeah, I think they're trying to be conservative and make sure things keep working, but also realizing that it could be like the next release could be a ways out. Yeah, awesome. I'll take a look at this soon, and that's if some of the APIs don't need to change, I think that would be great and more likely to be back portable to get to people faster.
One question I had though is I'm adding an like a runtime option specifically to like the image spec on CRI. So how would that work like for backporting to 1.7? Would they be okay with bringing in like?
I'm not sure. I don't have enough context to even think about that right now. Do you have any thoughts, James? Or if not, we would probably need to look into it.
I think technically it would be possible. I don't know what their answer would be for bringing it backwards.
Would this be a good candidate for 2.0 alpha? I think Derek mentioned in the coming few months they're going to have more alpha releases for like testing. So should this be part of one of those? And then if things look good, then we backport to 1.7 kind of.
For at least for the SIG-Windows test passes, we do have like one of the SIG-Windows tools repository does build containerd and HTStream nightly and produce a package with that we do utilize in testing. So I think that's less important to get it into for the containerd 2.0 alpha. Or rather, like it's not essential to be able to use this in our testing to do that. But if it is something that we want users to use, I think we should ask to have it or try and get it included in the alpha release. So I think it's like a nice to have, but not. We can still test things upstream using this and the AD tests, and point other people to use that nightly package. To use that too, but I think it's always good to have extra coverage in the releases, in the alpha releases and things. Because I think at that point we could figure out how to plumb like the runtime class names and stuff through like nerdctl as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Go ahead, James.
What was the working group that you mentioned?
Yeah.
I forget the name. I can add you guys to that thread. It's on Signals.
What were they trying to solve? Do you know?
They were trying to like discuss the whole like adding runtime to image pool and also like the snapshot stuff that they're working on. We have snapshot of the runtime class, and they wanted to like discuss more and see how we can bring those changes in.
Is that for specifically for Windows or for other runtimes as well?
Just in general, not specifically.
Yeah, I'm just interested in what other what are the other use cases for this besides the Windows Hyper-V situation?
I think one was also like just tying runtime to image was also going to help having snapshotters for runtime class. So I think that's one of the main motivations. Although, like, I think this particular draft PR, like, our motivation was to like unblock Hyper-V scenarios. But they're happy because this will also help them have snapshots for runtime.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. If you could link to that in Slack too, or I'll look for the working group. I'm interested at least in looking at meeting notes and seeing what was discussed.
Yeah, I'll add you guys then.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions about either of these or anything else you would like to discuss today?
I just pasted the link to the discussion on Slack to this chat.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I put that in the meeting notes too, just now, as you can see. I guess if that's the case, then I guess we'll end the recording right now. And thanks everybody for attending, and see everybody next week.